We should exercise and fulfill the first commandment by doing everything we can. For what purpose? To please God. Everything you do, I don't care how small it is or how great it is, do it to please God. Then you're carrying out the first commandment. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy soul and thy strength and thy might. Whatever you do, it's so simple. Do to please God. And you will carry out that first commandment because you'll never forget Him. That's the greatest thing. And the second thing is we must work. We must work to play our part in this existence here. We have to do that. We have to work. We have to mix with our neighbors. But when we are mixing with our neighbors and the things of this creation, we have to feel God's love in all things, in the flowers, in the stones even, and especially in one another. That's carrying out the second commandment. Play your part. Those who shirk playing their part will never enter into the kingdom of heaven. Because that's our duty. God has imposed that upon us, and we must do it. Our Master has said, God wants us to play our part in this world well. God wants us to do it. All the saints could do it. The saints could produce miracles, and God Himself could do all those things, but we'd be left out of the picture. He wants us to play our part no matter how insignificant. Usually God's churches and such things, the true churches, are built by the little contributions of His devotees. The rich people, their money is different from the money earned by the devotees of God. God wants that money. That's why it's so hard sometimes for true religion to prosper. But that's the way it is. Master wrote a letter one time, a most beautiful letter, which I'd like to read to you to point this thing out clearly. He said, when he wrote to me, he said, God and the masters can do anything by miracle. If God has made all this creation, universe upon universe, billions of them, He could do these little things. But, Master says, then we are left out. So we have to do our part in this cosmic play. And since God is playing and wants us to play hard, and when we do our best, that's all, when we do our best, He is well pleased. And then He frees us all to live in His kingdom evermore. Now there's the picture. There's what we have to do. We have to play our part to please God. And when He's well pleased, He'll take care of the rest. He can easily take care of it, and He surely will take care of it. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says the same thing. Play your part well without attachment. Play your part well without attachment. Be identified with Him by devotion, the Gita says. And then perform duty as duty, fighting without passion or desire. It's the desire that ties us to this worldly existence. Without anger or hatred. Thus, activity forges no bonds. Yoga is accomplished, which is union, and the soul is free. In those few words, you have the whole answer. Balance your life by performing your activity without attachment. Then there's no karma laid up, and your soul is free. These are wonderful words of the Gita, so much to the point. And so in our daily living, there must be a balance between idealism and practicality. There must be a balance between activity and meditation. And that person who has the wisdom to see this point, that if, instead of waiting until you have attained wisdom by living a life, as one gentleman told me one time, he said you have to live a life to know a life, and then you're all worn out knowing it. And that's about right. So happy is the man who, at an early age, understands this, has the wisdom enough to see this, and balances his life between activity and meditation, or between outward living and God contact, he is very fortunate indeed. He is supremely happy, and that is true. And so we must be practical. People who do business in the mind only don't succeed, do they? You have to ring the doorbells, as someone said. You have to be practical. You have to work hard. And that's why if you work hard and do it to please God, there's not half the effort in it than if you were just pleasing yourself or someone else. It is very necessary to do that. We must work hard. The other aspect of a balanced living, as I said, activity and meditation. The other aspect is to serve others. That's the second commandment. Thou must love thy neighbor as thyself. That simply means to serve them. Look at our Master's life. In one short lifetime of 60 years, he built such an organization which would ordinarily take 2 or 3 lifetimes. Why? Because he labored incessantly to serve others. 16, 20, 18, 20 hours a day was nothing for him. He set the example for us. And when I hear people say, oh, I worked so many hours today in the colony, I think, for heaven's sake, when you, through the Master's efforts, have the privilege of freedom in spirit, salvation, and counting up the hours,